Yannick Lahti from the University of Helsinki, where I'm a postdoctoral research fellow, and I co-authored this article or report with Dr. Emilia Palonen, also from the University of Helsinki. And we were, as of course the publication is about, writing about the Ukraine-Russian war and its impacts on the populist radical right scene in Finland. This is of course very topical at the moment because we're going to have the parliamentary elections in Finland in the coming 3 weeks. And at the moment the Prime Minister party, SDP, led by Prime Minister Marin, is in the polls as likely to maybe win as the National Coalition Party, the right-wing Conservative Party, and the Finns party, the populist radical right party. So at the moment, these 3 parties are really in the race for who's going to be leading Finland for the next 4 years. Now, to understand, for example, the take what the Finnish party has on Russia and its relations to the eastern neighbor, one has to understand, as we have explained in the report, the history of the Finnish populist scene, which has become the Finnish populist radical right scene, and its relation to the Soviet Union. So, interestingly, the Finnish populist radical right party, the Finns party, is not ever and has not ever been publicly very open or Russophilic, in the other words, a big lover of Vladimir Putin or the Kremlin regime. So in order to understand the position where the Finns party is in relation to Russia and Putin's regime in Kremlin, it is important, of course, to understand the roots of Finnish populism and the relationship of Finland to the eastern neighbor and the Soviet Union. So unlike many other European parties, the Finnish populist radical right scene are not very open-armed, welcoming any sort of policy from Kremlin or Putin or the Russian regime. And this, of course, all enhanced when Russia invaded violently and against international law Ukraine in 2022. But it also showed that there is actually, as much as there is a very anti-Putinist national consensus in Finland, it also showed that there was a pro-Putin, pro-Kremlin element within the Finns party. Because the one MP who was the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the MP Mika Niikko, tweeted on the 8th of February, just a couple of weeks before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that the French President Macron should step up and sort of cool off the relations in order not the war or the conflict to escalate to a full-scale war. MP Mika Niikko, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, tweeted that the French President Emmanuel Macron should step up and openly oppose Ukraine's positions within the NATO, although of course it is not a NATO member. This was publicly and widely all over the parties in Finland, greatly seen as a non-politically correct statement, and of course led very briefly to his resignation during the same day, which of course then sort of showed the true colors, the emperor without the clothes, that there are the pro-Kremlin elements within the Finnish party. However, the Finnish party is by no means Russophilic. And indeed now the former chair of that party, Jussi Halla-aho, who took Niikko's position, has taken a very, very strong stance, even politically correct in terms of Finnish political rhetoric, overly maybe aggressive stance against Russia's government and the Kremlin policy and the war in Ukraine. So of course, if we can conclude that the true Finns and the Finnish party is very strongly towards national sovereignty against, though, the Russian policy, it doesn't mean that they don't have the the Finnish exit of the European Union tendencies, although they're not officially actively advocating it. They have said that it's their long-term policy, and they are, of course, partly within the Finnish national consensus, very pro-NATO, because they don't want to go against that. They're sort of realpolitik about it. However, they are also very against supranational institutions. At the same time, the third point we made are that there are other populist radical right movements and smaller parties emerging from the margins. The Black Blue movement, and also there is the one MEP presentation populist party, Liike Nyt movement now, which is not radical right populist, but it is populist, and it did have financial connections to the Kremlin. So the point that we will say is that even if the most, I would say, established populist radical right elements in Finland are very much in the Finnish context, making a clear stance against Putin's policies, they are, however, still flirting with this anti-elitist, anti-supranational element, and the Finnish populist radical right party, the biggest one, who might even have a prime minister in Finland within the 3 weeks from now, does not sort of have the whole say about the populist radical right scene in Finland, because the scene is much more diverse and complex.